まずはこれを陛下に。Well, congratulations, Re-Estize nobles. The one guy in the entire world you don't want to make angry, and you somehow managed to do it. Hey, what's going on, everyone? And I'm back again today for another episode breakdown of Death March to the Parallel World Overlord Season 4. This episode is very political. That's the best way to describe it. It's politicking, world-building episode. I've been reading a lot of the comments, not only on my own videos, but also for videos from other Overlord content creators as well. And a lot of people are saying that they're viewing this season as slow, it's kind of boring, you know, there's not as much action. If you think about it, Overlord has never really been very heavy on the action. Like, seriously, in any given season of Overlord, there's maybe like 3 or 4 episodes of like actual action. And honestly, I don't even view action as like one of Overlord's strongest traits. In my opinion, the strongest trait of Overlord as an isekai anime is how Maruyama has created this world around the characters that have been isekai. In so many isekai anime that you see out there, it just follows the MC, just kind of doing his own thing. It doesn't really explore outside the purview of the MC. But in Overlord, we get entire episodes sometimes without Ainz in them. Like, we spend literally whole episodes, or the majority of episodes, focusing on these side characters. Not only has Maruyama created an amazing world that Ainz is transported to, he's actually filling up that world with real characters. And what I feel this episode did is not only advance the plot, because it needed to do that for, you know, the final showdown with the Re-Estize kingdom, but it also showed and framed the political situation of the world better. And that's why I don't view these episodes as boring. That's just how I see it. That's just my opinion. But rant aside, moving on to the actual episode. So there's actually a small scene in the light novel that they omitted from the anime, and I take it they're just omitting all the intermissions from the volumes now. It's an intermission chapter, and it takes place in actually the City-State Alliance. That is a country that is to the east of the Baharuth Empire, and the City-State Alliance can best be described as like a conglomerate of a bunch of different separate nations. Like, the cities are relatively independent, but they're all merged together to form this one country. Pretty much each one takes care of itself. And in the intermission chapter, we're in the city of Bebad, and it basically just follows its ruler as they're going around and they're preparing for this big, not festival, it's a big fighting competition that they have in the City-State Alliance every 5 years. Basically, this chapter is just showing the current ruler of the city of Bebad talking to their grandfather about the situation with the Sorcerer Kingdom, and they just want to know more about what's going on with Re-Estize. Not a super important intermission chapter, just, you know, more world building. But moving on, we start off with that scene between Zanac and Renaer. So they talk about this in the anime, but I'm going to elaborate more on it because there's more details in the light novel. Basically, at this point, Ramposa has pretty much been, like, forced to abdicate by Zanac, and Zanac has quietly basically just taken over as King Regent of the Re-Estize Kingdom. This had to happen because King Ramposa kept insisting on a diplomatic solution when it was clear that wasn't an option anymore. Basically, it's the smart thing to do, but it just wasn't never going to happen. So Zanac just basically decided, like, look, a diplomatic solution is not an option anymore. We have to at least try something, and if you're not going to do that, I'm going to take over. And so now Zanac is basically the de facto ruler and king of Re-Estize. He's ruling as King Regent now at this point. And at this point, Zanac is aware of the invasion that's already been happening of the Re-Estize kingdom for the past month. And they conclude that this could only happen due to misinformation networks that are being led by Marquis Raven. I wasn't sure if it was a spoiler or not to say that last episode, so I omitted that. But yeah, Marquis Raven has pretty much been on the side of the Sorcerer Kingdom this entire time. As we've already established, there was not only Marquis Raven, but being a great noble, he had a lot of influence over other nobles in the area, so basically they've all kind of contributed to this misinformation network amongst the Re-Estize kingdom, and it's now pretty obvious to Zanac that the Sorcerer Kingdom is going to converge on the royal capital for this final confrontation, if you want to call it that, of this war. So at this point, you know, Zanac is just basically like, we have to make a stand. Like, there's no other way to do this. We have to try, and he puts out the message to, you know, men-at-arms, come together, this is, you know, this is it. And afterwards, we have this scene between the Adamantite groups and the members of the Theocracy, and it's not directly said in the episode itself, but these guys that came from Theocracy are members of the Black Scripture. And if you guys watched my Slain Theocracy video, you'd know this, but the Black Scripture is basically the strongest military unit from the Slain Theocracy. Every single one of their members is pretty strong, in particular 2 of them, which are Godkins. I've mentioned those before. Godkins are New World inhabitants with the blood of players. Now, none of the Black Scripture members that showed up are Godkins, but they're all extremely strong. Other than Evil Eye, they're stronger than everyone in that room. I can't remember their names exactly. I only know them by their like titles in the Black Scripture. The blonde guy, he's called One Man Army, so that kind of shows you that this guy means business. Blue-haired girl is called Endless Magic, Infinite Magic, something like that. Basically, she's got a lot. She's got all the magic. And the big older gentleman is called Strongest Human. So yeah, these guys all mean business. They are ready to party. I can't remember what the ninja guy's name is. All I know is that he's also in the Black Scripture. And the Black Scripture is basically for like hunting down like really strong threats to the Theocracy, in particular like Dragon Lords and stuff. And Dragon Lords are like the strongest race in the New World. So that shows you how strong these guys are. If you don't recall, the Black Scripture was the group that encountered Shoutier and were the ones that used Downfall of Castle and Country on her to brainwash her in Season 1. And here we also meet Azuth Indra, who is the leader of the Adamantite group Red Drop, and is also the guy that was in the mecha in the last episode. I don't think it's a spoiler to say that, but yeah, that's the guy. Basically, this whole conversation is the Theocracy trying to convince the Adamantite adventurers to come to the Theocracy because they're trying to save the strong members of humanity because they know that this war with the Sorcerer Kingdom is going to result in everyone being wiped out. Something that isn't said in the anime is that at this point, there's already been a lot of adventurers coming from the Re-Estize Kingdom over to the Theocracy as like an escape route. But as seen in the anime, both Blue Roses and Red Drop declined this. There is one little thing that was cut out in this conversation, and that's a comment that's made by Azuth. So basically, in the light novel, Azuth makes this comment about this guy named Rufus in the Theocracy that is never mentioned, pretty much at all at this point. And Azuth implies that this guy is undead, and that the Black Scripture is connected to him somehow, and that goes against the teachings of the Theocracy because the Theocracy is humanocentric, and this causes all the Black Scripture members to like immediately like get ready to pounce on this guy because that's like a state secret, like no one's supposed to know that stuff. So this shows you in the light novel that Azuth is a lot smarter and craftier than he seems. He kind of comes across as this like lackadaisical playboy, but he's actually like, he's an adamantite adventurer, and that Azuth somehow has some way of getting information from the deepest, darkest secrets of the Slain Theocracy, which is the strongest human nation in the region. But it's not a huge point, but that basically just shows you that this Rufus person that he referred to in the Slain Theocracy is 100% real and extremely important not to know about in the Slain Theocracy as well. So the last scene pretty much takes up the rest of the episode, which is the meeting between Ainz and Zanac. So in the light novel, they explain numbers a little bit more. The kingdom has 400,000, so they have even more people than they did at the Kotz Plains. And Ainz only has an army of 10,000. However, his army, of course, is just decked out. It's higher level, and Zanac knows, despite their numbers advantage, they have no chance. In this conversation between Zanac and Ainz, there really wasn't much in terms of cut contact. The conversation itself was pretty much the same. I just really liked seeing it animated and voiced over. It was really interesting to watch, these two characters that pretty much have nothing in common, and yet they somehow are able to reach like this common consensus between them. And the main thing in this conversation that I focused on was Ainz's comment about trying to find happiness. Because in the light novel, at this point, I believe it's kind of within Ainz's internal dialogue, he's pretty much accepted at this point that he's probably not going to find any of his, fellow Ainz Guild members. It's dawning on him, the longer he stays in the New World, the less likely it becomes that he's going to run into one of his old guild mates. So at this point, he's not as committed to finding the other members of Ainz as he was before because he doesn't really view that as a likely possibility anymore. He's more interested in creating a nation and a world that him and like the people he cares about can have their happiness, And, you know, it's kind of weird because he's been doing all this cruel stuff, but that's his ultimate goal. And this just goes to show you that all these acts he does, all the things that happen in the story, it's all a matter of perspective, you know? And he kind of throws that in Zanac's face. Like, Zanac replies like, you would take away the happiness of others in order to secure your own happiness. And Ainz is like, of course I would. Are you telling me that in order to ensure your own subjects' happiness, you wouldn't take away the happiness of someone else? And Zanac has no response to that. And that's the whole conundrum with this whole kind of like alignment deal in Overlord. Is just like, yes, Ainz is evil if you're like a third party looking down at this whole thing, but put to the perspective of those in the Sorcerer Kingdom and Nazarick and stuff, he's like the greatest thing since sliced bread, and he's like the nicest dude ever, and he loves them unconditionally and stuff like that. It's all a matter of perspective, and it just adds this another layer to Overlord. And I sorry guys, I know I'm geeking on so hard right now. Basically, this is just showing you that things aren't just black and white, because I've actually heard this really interesting theory on Ainz's mental state. It's that there is actually like a secondary personality like locked away. There's these two personalities in Ainz's head. There's, you know, Momonga, Suzuki Satoru, the human guy, and then there's the actual Ainz Ulgon, like the role-played character that Suzuki Satoru role-played in Yggdrasil, and they're basically like battling it out, and like they keep swapping up in and out. It hasn't been proven, but that's a really interesting theory. So the two of them come to a consensus and a mutual respect, and I really liked that scene where they were going off, and they kind of like looked back at each other and they thought about it, and Ainz was thinking like, wow, I guess this is just how a true royal behaves. Zanac pretty much thinks the complete same thing about Ainz, like, you know, if he's only looking for happiness, like, maybe I'm not meant to be a ruler, you know? And then we have the whole coup with Zanac, and honestly, what makes this such a tragic end for Zanac is because Zanac was like the only heir to the throne that actually genuinely cared about Re-Estize. Like, Renaer obviously doesn't care, because at this point we know she's working with Nazarick to take down the Re-Estize kingdom, and his older brother Barbro was really just foolish and was kind of just gonna be a pawn for the noble faction. That's why they wanted him on the throne. Zanac was the only viable choice to be king, and he was the only one that genuinely cared about Re-Estize, and yet in the end he's killed by citizens of the country that he cares about. And it's kind of a sad, poetic end for Zanac, and this is reflected in Ainz's response to this whole situation. Like they are hoping that they're going to spare him because they're showing their loyalty. It is the complete opposite. He's absolutely disgusted with them. Ainz doesn't show it at all, but he's extremely enraged. You know, these people, they had a respectable guy as king and they betrayed him, and it's a little ironic because at this point Ainz actually had a little bit of reservations about committing the war to like the finale, like actually like committing to this final, you know, massacre that's going to happen in the royal capital. He was actually kind of reserved about it. And this act completely sent him over the edge. Like, he was just like, okay, you know, you guys have just sealed your own fate at this point. He basically relinquishes all sympathies for the humans of the kingdom at this point. He's lost interest. He doesn't care anymore. He's tired of thinking about, you know, the morality of this whole thing. He's just like, I'm done with this. Let's do it, and I want to get these people cleared out because I'm tired of all this stuff. Honestly, such a human reaction to this whole thing, and like honestly, this episode is just kind of showing Ainz as human. Not only with the conversation he had with Zanac before, but also his reaction to this whole thing and how disgusted he is with this. So he sends the Re-Estize nobles off to Neuronist, and if you guys don't remember Neuronist, she is the NPC with the kidney stone simulator. So these guys are not going to have a good time. I really think the anime did a good job of, even though Ainz is emotionless, I feel like through his actions and the way he was moving around, it just showed you how angry and annoyed he was by this. He's not screaming, he doesn't have that aura going on about him, he doesn't have like the gamer rage that he got in season 3. He's just silently and blankly enraged, and I like the way the anime showed that. It seems like they made the right call by making this arc more episodes because they're taking their time with a lot of these things. They're not really cutting all that much. And so guys, with this episode, Ainz has committed Nazarick and the Sorcerer Kingdom to the finale of this war with the Re-Estize kingdom. Act of the nobles mutinying on Zanac was the last straw in terms of his mercy. And even though, because of, you know, the actions of Bastonia and stuff, he decided to give the people of Enaril, in the last episode, the people of that city, a chance to escape, the people of the royal capital are going to face his full fury, and I am just so excited to see this, and I can't wait for the rest of this arc, guys. It's just gonna be so good. Oh my gosh. So guys, what did you think of this episode of Overlord? Did you like the politicking, the world building? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. I want to hear from you guys. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more like it, please don't forget to hit that like button on your way out, and if you aren't already, please subscribe to the channel. It helps me out more than you know, and it'll let you know when I post in the future. With that being said, I want to thank you all for watching to the very end of the video, and I will see you all next time. Bye.